What's up, guys? Illegal Defense, episode 13. We're going to get straight into it with some college football. Great games last week, rivalry week. We're going to get straight into the big game, Ohio State versus Michigan. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, huge week, like you said, and huge game. I mean, look, this had a lot of hype going into it. Number two versus number three for the game. Best rivalry in college football, probably best rivalry in college sports overall, and maybe in all of sports. Period.
For sure.
And yeah, like I said, a lot of hype going into it. The buildup was crazy. Everybody was tuned in. Both teams knew you win this game, you're pretty much in the
Basically,
playoffs. So a lot on the line too in a rivalry that was pretty one sided for the last
decade.
2 decades really. Michigan obviously won last year. We know the whole snow happening and Ohio State being called soft for that game and all that. Um, but yeah, people, me included, I thought Ohio State was, gonna treat this kind of like how they treated Clemson back a few years ago, and go and have a revenge game, really put it on Michigan. Just didn't happen.
No.
Almost, it was a funny game because almost everything that should have worked for Ohio State kind of didn't in some respects. I mean, they kind of dominated that first half, but they just, let Michigan just fly down the field on a few explosive chunk plays, score touchdowns, kept the game close going into the half. You come out of the half and just more of the same happened. They kept leaving those receivers on the outside, single coverage. They kept sending all out blitzes at the quarterback, and Michigan's quarterback J.J. McCarthy was able to find the open man down the field time after time and hit him over the top for huge plays. Guys were getting beat on double moves and no safety over the top to come help with those plays. And yeah, just all around, it just kind of all fell apart for Ohio State. They couldn't really keep the offense going. Like all the momentum kind of shifted to Michigan.
Yeah.
We had the headbutt by the one of the tight ends, G. Scott Jr. knocks Ohio State from pretty
Yeah.
much around the midfield mark, where they would have started the drive in great field position, and and they end up in first and 35.
Yeah, that was just such a setback.
Yeah, and they just couldn't get anything going from there. It was really deep hole for them to climb out of. And then, the game was closer than the score would tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
Michigan just completely ran away with it in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, just hit, another two extra huge explosive touchdown plays at the end, just to kind of pile it on. But yeah, I mean, look, great win for Michigan. Harbaugh really, displayed his coaching abilities in this game. Completely outcoached Ryan Day. Look, Michigan is a good program. They've clearly risen to be, one of the elite programs of the Big Ten. I mean, they always were kind of the next best outside of Ohio State. It seems like if they're not there, they're right around the talent level that Ohio State is at. They still don't have the recruiting advantage, I
Right.
would say, but they have a guy now, JJ McCarthy. He's a 5-star quarterback, and he's gonna be playing there. They're gonna see him. They're gonna see him. Plenty more times, and yeah, he look. Ohio State's got to make some changes and do some things to get back at Michigan and really kind of change the way they approach things.
Yeah.
I seen a lot on the internet, people talking about how these kind of things wouldn't happen if this was Jim Tressel or Urban Meyer. I agree with them to an extent, because like for John Harbaugh, right? You saw that he came into this game prepared with plays for Ohio State, right?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
this game is known for being such a fierce rivalry that these guys, both teams, they set things up from the summer in training camp for
Hmm.
this game. It's that important. It's that much is on the line in this game. The Michigan Wolverines, they had that. They did a bunch of things that they didn't do all year, waiting for to play Ohio State to surprise
To
them.
put
The
them.
jump pass
Yeah.
that they hit on the huge fourth down play. Ohio State, they didn't really have those kind of things happening, right?
Right.
Former alumni and players were pretty disappointed with the outcome.
Yeah.
A lot of them were disappointed, but at the end of the day, it is a lot being made out of maybe nothing at this point. You know, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, they always, for the most part, beat Michigan. I don't think they face the same caliber of Michigan that
That Ryan Day is
yeah,
facing.
that we're seeing right now. Also, there was a different level of control you could have as a head coach back then. Now with the transfer portal, you gotta be careful with how you
How you dictate
how you
things, how
treat
you go about
players, yeah,
things. Yeah.
how you do things. Urban Meyer, I mean, we know from his time with the Jags and all that stuff that comes out, he rules with an iron fist.
Yeah.
Great coach, but he rules with an iron fist, and it doesn't really work for the NFL guys, and it probably wouldn't work that great unless he made some changes now in the whole NIL era, where people are going to be like, look, he's a good coach, he's putting me in position to win, but I don't need to deal with this guy yelling at me or benching me because this or that. I'll just
Right.
go play somewhere else and have a good time. So it takes now
It's a
certain
whole
kind of
different-
people
yeah, it's a
to
whole
deal with
different
that.
landscape.
It would work at maybe a not so good program where it's not a bunch of 5 stars that everyone in the country wants. It's a little different in Ohio State. That being said, no excuses. You got to get the job done. You bring in Jim Knowles to shore up the defense. The defense pretty much collapsed. I mean,
Yeah.
they played good in the first half and they only let off I think it was 2 or 3 big plays, but second half they kept making the same mistakes, kept getting cooked in
In the secondary.
secondary.
and they let up on the run. I think that was part of the. I think one good takeaway as as a Buckeye fan and just like any Ohio State fan can take away from this is that you can come away with this game with the thing is like Ohio State kind of beat themselves in a sense. And I mean, hats off to Michigan. They played a great game. They game planned. You can tell that Hallbrook coached and he had his guys prepared. But from the penalties, from headbutt, it's like, why are you headbutting somebody when you're already third and long, and then you just set, or second and long, and then you just set your team back a whole nother 15 yards. And then on top of that, it's like Jim Knowles, there was very little adjustments. Ryan Day was being very conservative. I think he trusted his defense. I think that's what it really came down to, and their defense just wasn't able to perform to the degree that they normally do or to where they are supposed to. But again, I mean, Michigan, they played well. They did what they had to do. I think they were way more prepared. I think they valued this game a lot more than Ohio State, which is kind of weird because you would think Ohio State did a little bit more considering that they lost last year, and then on top of that, it's like, I mean, it's Michigan, so I mean, it's a weird situation, but
a few things. So I think on one end, yes, Ohio State did kind of beat themselves, and you kind of see this sometimes, especially at the college level. You could be a great team, but will that great team show up and have that, A plus, A minus game, even a B plus game every week? This for Ohio State was kind of like a C minus type of game that they put out there. It wasn't one of their best games that they put out there, and as a result, they got beat. On top of, like you said, not making adjustments. I think what the only thing that I can make heads or tails of and try to come to terms with for why JJ McCarthy was able to keep beating them with the deep ball all game was they kept saying he got lucky. He can't do that again. He got lucky again. He can't do that again. Oh man, what kind of luck is this? They just keep beating us over the top for beating us in single coverage. How many times is this going to happen? What are the chances? Okay, at this point, it's clear he has that ability. You know what I mean? Like they never
it's something
shifted
you
it.
have to respect at this point.
The other point that I would make is to your point about Michigan feeling like they wanted this game more. I think this is sometimes the unforeseen consequences of success, where for the last 2 decades, Ohio State's pretty much,
Ran the
destroyed Michigan every time, right?
Yeah.
So now, if you're Michigan, you don't forget that. You never like getting beat by Ohio State, but you might have not had the ability all those years. They might have tried just as hard, but the talent gap might have been just too wide.
Right.
Now the talent gap isn't as huge, and the coaching is there to back it up. And they're coming into this game thinking about Ohio State all year, where Ohio State is thinking national championship all year,
right?
and they're looking a little past this. They probably looked at last year like, oh, they got lucky. It was snowing, and our offense wasn't really built perfectly for that. And don't worry, we'll get them this year. We'll handle them. Our defense is better now too, and CJ Stroud has another year, and we have other receivers stepping up. But Michigan planned and they handled the business and they did what they needed to do. So we'll talk about more at a later point, the playoff implications of all this and all that. But yeah, certainly a fun weekend. Disappointing for Ohio State. I mean, even recruits in almost a funny way talked about how the city of Columbus really like felt grim and like hurting the whole city, as like you could tell that they really care about this team and about football. So even in a loss, that's something that recruits used as somewhat as a positive, even just being that, okay, this place, they care about football. It's not like, oh, this is just another game and we'll get them next year. No, people were calling for Ryan Day's head at this point.
Yeah,
that's how extreme things were getting.
Which is I think it's kind of unfair. I mean, the guys won against Michigan, so. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later in the episode.